Well, now that we have understood what empathy is and how it is important for teachers, let's now go over to the fourth component of emotional intelligence, which is relationship management. Relationship management is a part of social competence. Well, as we all know, we are social beings. We live with other people, we are in relationship with other people, and not just commonsensically, but with a lot of research, we now know that the single most important contributor to well-being is our relationships, the kind of relationships that we have. So relationships are really crucial for our life and for our well-being. With that understanding, I think we need to contribute a lot more to our relationships. We need to build and maintain our relationships in a better way. Another important part of relationship management is, see, in relationships, we are often talking about how we are feeling. Okay, but a lot of the times it is also about what you are doing for other people. So, the second point of developing others is about what do we do for other people. How do we help other people realize their potential? How do we help other people garner resources or provide them resources so that they are able to realize their potential? Another important part, in fact, a very, very important part of relationships is the way we communicate with each other. So, communication skills are really, really core to relationships. Okay. And when we talk about communication skills, it's not just verbal communication, it is also about non-verbal communication. So, our communication skills are really, really important to being emotionally intelligent. And we'll see that in our latest slides how a wrong or faulty communication can often lead to the breakdown of relationships. So we really need to focus on how we communicate. Also, as we all know that in any kind of a relationship, there's always a potential for conflict, because when there are two people or more than two people in a relationship, what happens is that people have differing ideas, they have different ideologies, they have different needs, which may lead to a clash, which may lead to a conflict. And conflict, let me tell you, is not a bad thing for any relationship. But what is more important is how you manage that conflict. How do you perceive that conflict, and how do you go around to resolve that conflict, which is more important than the conflict itself? Well, as we are talking about communication, I think in communication there are many blocks to communication which are given by Schilling 1996. What are these blocks? And let me tell you that all of us at some point or the other, we fall into the trap of these kind of blocks. What are they? The most common block in communication is interrupting, right? A lot of the times when somebody else is speaking and we want to say something and we don't stop for that, we don't wait for that person to stop, and we interrupt that person and we want to say what we want to. So what happens is that the other person may get a feeling that what they are saying is not so important, and that is why you're interrupting. So that is a very a common way in which we impede communication. Another way is advising. And when I say advising, it's unnecessary, unsolicited advice that we give to people. So nobody's asking us for advice, but while they are saying something, we tend to give them advice. Okay, which they have not asked for. So what happens is that that shows the person that that maybe the other person is not paying attention, or maybe they want to act superior, therefore they are giving advice. So a lot of the times the communication takes a different turn because you start to give advice at everything the person is saying. Third, very common again, judging. As soon as the other person says something, we immediately assume in our mind that this is because of this, okay? And we evaluate the person, and then we convey that evaluation to the other person, which may again impede or block our communication. Next is interpreting. Interpreting is overly analyzing and trying to understand the causes of why a person is saying something that they're saying. Okay. And it's when you do this, the other person is going to get a little, uh, they will feel very, very conscious. They will feel, why are you interpreting everything that they're saying, even though it's nothing like that. Okay. And when it's like a pattern, then it's really a problem. Okay. So interpreting the causes of what the other person is saying or the meaning of what they are saying is a block to communication. Next is dominating, again, a very common one. And we are all aware of people who can really take over the conversation. Okay. So let's not be that person who dominates the conversation. Let's try to be people who try to give chance to other people to speak as well and not take over the conversation. Because when person is saying something and then you say, oh, I remember the story when so what happens is they start to feel that they're not that important. And every time you take over the conversation, so eventually what will happen is you're the only one who's talking and the other person just does not say anything at all. Then probing, unnecessarily asking questions. So a person just tries to tell you that they went for a movie, and then you just hit them with a series of questions. Where? With whom? Okay, what did you eat? So unnecessary probing, right? Even if it is a very, very strong relationship. If you ask just too many questions every time you're communicating, that may act as a block, because then the person is not communicating, they're actually answering your questions. Okay, so that may be a very serious block to communication. Next is challenging, accusing, contradicting whatever the other person is saying, and they may definitely not like it and may not get involved in the conversation as much. And the last is criticizing or putting down or name calling. So when you do that quite often in a relationship, like I said, if it's a pattern that you follow, then that relationship is not going to flower very well, or the person is not going to express themselves very well. So the reason why I wanted to share this with you is that if you're emotionally intelligent, you will immediately understand, even if you interrupted, even if you were dominating the conversation, you will immediately understand that I should not. Okay. And if you're emotionally intelligent, you will beforehand understand that you should not be doing these kind of things which may block communication. All right. So for every subcomponent we're talking about its importance for teachers, obviously relationship management is important for teachers a lot, because teachers are connecting with so many people in a single day. Okay, they're connecting with students, they are connecting with other faculty members, they are connecting with the administrators, they are also communicating with parents. So obviously communication skills, conflict resolution, all these things become really, really important for teachers, right? Then developing others, I think it's a very, very core to being a teacher, to develop others. And here we are referring to students. Students may, a lot of the times, may not realize their own potential, may not even recognize their own potential. But if a teacher is sharp enough, is observant enough, she is able to locate, or she is able to identify or recognize talent in a student, and then she or he may help them to develop their potential. Okay, so developing others. Conflict resolution is having more collaborative solutions to resolve conflicts, rather than avoiding talking about conflicts, right? I think that's a very unhealthy way to resolve conflicts, is just to avoid it. No, try to do active resolution of conflicts, and try to involve the other parties which are involved in the conflict for resolving the conflict. Because we all understand that without managing your conflict, your relationship will not go too far. So that is again very important for teachers. Okay, so while they're communicating with their administrators, if they want to say something and the administrators are disagreeing, if they're saying something and the other colleagues are disagreeing or the students are disagreeing, then they should know how to be able to manage the conflict and to maintain harmony. Well, so we have seen how relationship management is important, and how it's important for teachers. So let's see how we can develop, or how we can develop our relationships, how we can maintain our relationships in a better way. The first strategy is a very simple strategy which says we have to first of all understand the importance of interpersonal relationships in our life. Okay, the moment we understand the importance of relationships in our life, we will value the relationships, we will resolve our conflicts, we will communicate in a better way, valuing the needs and emotions of other people. That's really important. So that also comes a lot from empathy, that we try to understand what other people are feeling from their perspective, and then we are able to better manage our relationships. Enhancing our communication skills. So we just saw a list of blocks to communication. So let us introspect and see whether we are not falling prey to those blocks of communication, and try to better our communication skills. In case of conflict, taking steps to resolve the conflict, and that will only occur, go back to the first point, when we understand that relationships are important to us. Only then we'll try to resolve the conflicts in a healthier way. Okay, now this is a very, very important strategy of maintaining your relationships, particularly communication skills. And even in communication skills, a lot of problems occur in communication when we're trying to communicate about our distressing emotions, particularly, let's say, anger. A lot of the times, so, what are iMessages? Well, iMessages, as you can see, that a lot of the times, let's say that somebody has not done what we expected them to do. So, we are very judgmental and we say, you're like this, you're very irresponsible, I'm never going to trust you again. So, we are very, very judgmental. But when we convey our anger in this way, I think it will impede our relationships, it will negatively impact our relationships. So, a better way to convey your distressing emotions, okay, particularly if you're talking about anger, is to follow these four steps. What are these four steps? First of all, non judgmental description of the person's behavior. So instead of saying you are irresponsible, you are like this, you are like that, we have to describe their behavior in very objective terms, okay, without being judgmental. Second, we have to also tell them the concrete effects of their behavior on ourselves. Third, our feelings about the situation. And fourth, what I would prefer the other person to do. Okay, now if you look at these four steps, they are given by Tom Gordon, and it may look very artificial to you. It may look that, it's a little made up. It's not possible to talk to people like that when you are angry. But believe me, when you practice this over a period of time, it will really become automatic. So let's take an example of how we can practice iMessages. So let's say that somebody, they had taken your book and they haven't returned it on time. And because of that, the person in the library spoke very rudely to you because you did not return the book on time. Now you're very angry with your friend. So, how do you communicate this anger to your friend? So, the first thing is you will tell them that instead of saying you are irresponsible, you're like this, you're like that, you will say, when you did not return my book on time. Second is concrete effect on myself. I had to really listen to everything which the librarian had to say. Those were not very positive things that they were saying to me. Third, I felt ashamed. I felt really bad. This, I think, is really important. The third point is really important. Often we say that you have annoyed me. Because of you, I'm feeling ashamed. Okay, so what's happening here is when you say something like that, you're not owning your emotions, right? So you have to say I felt ashamed. And fourth, you will say that next time when you take any of my things, I would prefer that you return it on time, and say it very politely. Okay, when you practice these things, over a period of time, believe me, it will become very automatic. And these are a very, very good way to communicate your distressing emotions to other people. What are the other strategies for developing and maintaining relationships? Is you identify potential in other people and help them develop their potential. Understanding and respecting diversity. So we all understand that, people are different in so many ways. So we understand things from their perspective and we try to bring in their perspective, and therefore that will really help us in our relationship. Practicing emotional self management so as not to hurt the feelings of others. That means, I was talking about anger, even anxiety or stress. If you're not able to manage your emotions, that may hurt your relationships also. Okay, so self management is really important. Building trust in interpersonal relationships. Okay, so being a person who the other person can trust. Okay, so trying to develop that in us, giving direct and constructive feedback to other people. Okay, instead of blaming them, instead of using negative terms, we should give a constructive and positive feedback to people, and direct feedback instead of talking about them behind their back. Expressing love and care for other people, that will also help us boost our relationships. And last is not giving mixed signals. Okay, so your verbal expression is something else, but your non-verbal expression is something else. So I think they have to be in congruence, they have to be in tune with each other. So I think with these strategies we'll be better able to maintain our relationships and develop our relationships in a very, very positive and constructive way.